Hey, Facebook friends, Jessica here with Ugly Mug Marketing. So today I'm really excited to be joined with someone I've gotten to know over the last few years. This is Krista Redmond. Krista, I told her before we started recording, I feel like it's like Krista Redmond, comma, and then there's many, many, many things that you could say afterwards, just because she does obviously a lot in her career. She does a lot for our community. And then, of course, she does a lot for herself personally. So Krista is a professor at LSUA. She's working towards getting her doctorate through them. She is a local artist here, so you can kind of see some of her paintings behind her. They're always fun and amazing. She is a part of our community through various outlets as well. She's a wife. She's a mom of 3 little boys who are absolutely precious. And just, if I left anything out, Krista, please make sure to jump in. So, hey, Krista, how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
We're doing good. So we are talking to Krista today, kind of a little bit just about the different things that she's done in our community, on the professional side, on the other sides as well. But another good thing that we're going to talk about is goals. So Krista set a goal. Krista, when exactly were you like, I'm going to become Dr. Krista Redmond?
I would have to say that was all the way back as an undergraduate, really. My undergraduate degree is from Texas Christian University in Fort Worth, Texas, and I've always known I wanted to be a teacher. Back even when I was, I would say, as young as, 5, 6, I would line up my stuffed animals and come home from school and teach them what I learned in school that day. And when I got to TCU, I met a professor, Dr. Kathy Block, and she was one of my primary professors because my emphasis was literacy. And I became very close to her, and just she became my mentor. And in fact, we kept in touch even after I graduated TCU, and she actually served on my doctoral committee. So it was very neat to see my TCU roots carry me through my master's and carry me through now my journey through the doctoral process. And Dr. Block just inspired me. I thought, you know what, I'm going to be a professor like her one day, and I'm going to teach teachers, future teachers. I always call them future educators when I address them. I want to mold and shape their minds before they get into their first classroom. So that's that. I mean, Dr. Block, she's been my inspiration. And so that's when I knew back then, really. As far as when I wanted to execute that timeline, my goodness, life happens. So I started the journey 4 years ago. It's taken me longer than it has, takes other people to get their doctorate education. But we had a surprise baby up in there, and career changes and moves, and, just chipped away at it a little bit at a time.
Yeah. So for some people who don't know, what exactly is the doctoral process?
Well, the university I went through is the ULM, University of Louisiana in Monroe. And a lot of the coursework was online. And it's just, you take your courses. My emphasis was curriculum and instruction. And then once you finish all of your coursework, there's a set number of hours. You have what's called your written comps, and they email you 4 different research topics, and you have 2 weeks to write 4 different research papers. And you submit them, and then you go for your oral defense of those 4 papers. And so I drove to Monroe and defended those and passed that. Then you're clear to start your dissertation process. So it's kind of like at the end of your coursework, can you produce the type of scholarly and research type of writing, and then be able to, effectively talk about it and defend it. And then they're like, okay, you're ready to start the dissertation. And actually, I'm only the second one in the program that has chosen a 3-paper dissertation format as opposed to like an empirical research study. And So one of the kickers is that one of your articles, so you have to write 3 articles, and one of the 3 articles has to be accepted for publication somewhere. So that was one of the articles was published in the National Association of Secondary Principals publication called Principal Leadership. That was in the March 20 issue. So that article was published. So that was kind of a check, because you have to have one of them published before you're allowed to defend. So then I wrapped up writing all the dissertation. It was 5 chapters, and I defended actually last Monday to my committee via Zoom, and passed. And so now it's just kind of a formality, waiting, and commencement is they pushed it to office with everything going on.
Yeah, so you were sharing earlier that, I think you and I have talked about we're people. So we want to be in the room with people. We want to meet with people in person. So obviously defending your dissertation is a huge goal and is a huge milestone, I'm sure, for anybody in any type of doctoral program. What was that like, having to basically completely change, I mean, not completely change because you're still defending it, but completely change how, I'm sure, everybody has in the back of their mind, just like any big milestone, okay, this is how this is going to work, oh, I'm probably going to wear this outfit, and, okay, I'm going to make sure to arrive 45 minutes early.
Sure.
So what was that mindset of oh, okay, well, now I'm not going to meet these people in person.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to get on my computer and have to defend it.
It definitely was just having to adapt to our current, world. I was planning, in my mind, when you picture finally being ready to defend, I was picturing, like you said, well, what am I going to wear, and what's the room going to be like? And it very quickly changed to, actually, I went to my mom's house, so my kids wouldn't come in on the defense. It turned into my mom's kitchen table. So it was just, I thought, well, okay, I have to obviously put on makeup that I haven't put on in the last 3 months, and just make sure I had a nice looking professional top on. But it was very different. I had them in the gallery view over onto the side, and I made sure I couldn't see myself to distract myself. I just would work myself up too much if I was watching myself. And then it was just very interesting. Like I was sharing earlier, one professor stood the whole time and just like this and listened. And one, you could tell she was at her desk, and she was just kind of here the whole time I was presenting. And then one, I could hear the beeping of the microwave in the background. She said, "Oh, sorry, my son's heating up his breakfast." So it was just, it was just very different, but we all rolled with it, and they were very helpful, all my professors on my committee, and very supportive. And then Dr. Block, she zoomed in from Fort Worth. The rest were in Monroe, and she served on the committee, so it actually was good in the sense that she could be there, and her familiar face helped me feel more at ease.
Yeah, so one of the interviews we did early on, we talked with a few people from LSUA, just talking about, hey, what are they doing different? And Dr. Abby Bain was one of the people that I spoke with. And one of my favorite things that she said was, going through your doctoral program, they don't teach you, all right, so now we're going to talk about what you're going to do during a pandemic.
Right. That's absolutely true. I mean, that's so true. I'm teaching at LSUA, and so I had to then transfer my course that I was teaching to the distance learning format as well for the rest of the semester, while I was trying to wrap all this other dissertation and defense things up. And it's the same thing. I was talking to my future teachers about, well, what would you do? I mean, I teach block 1, and they're what I call the newbies. They're fresh, they're new, they're not jaded. I love teaching block 1. They're just eager and ready to soak in all the ideas. And I said, well, what would you do? What would you have done right now if you were in your own classroom and you had to, switch to distance learning just like that? And so that it was a good learning moment, even for those block 1 education majors.
Yeah, and it's definitely been interesting, especially with, and now, so, I mean, we have one, we talked about earlier. So, my oldest is your middle one, is the same age as your middle one.
Mhm.
And I can't imagine having to try to, I mean, we still did things at home and little workbooks and, hey, let's draw the alphabet with chalk. And, let's count to, let's count our grapes and, trying to do that. But so on top of all of this, so writing your dissertation, finishing that up, knowing you're going to have to defend it, teaching your classes fully online now. Then you also had kiddos at home, and one of which who is for sure, I forget how old the oldest one is.
He's third grade, so he's 9. Mhm.
So I can't imagine, and then having to try and basically almost teach, I guess, him as well. How did you ever feel during, when all of this kind of happened, did you ever feel like, okay, maybe I can press pause on finishing finishing this, and hey, let me just push it back to maybe the summer?
No, because I knew if I quit, my personality is, if I would have given myself a break, I wouldn't have known when I would have picked it back up. So for me and myself, I just had to keep charging forward. Now, not to saying I balanced all that well that you just named. I mean, there were days where I felt like I woke up and I had it together and we were on somewhat of a schedule and I got the baby down at his nap time. Then we did, distance learning and whatnot. I had a lot of help from, as far as childcare goes, to be able to put in, some of my own personal hours. Did not do this solo. And then there were some days where it was not all together at all. And we barely made it through the end of the day. And they played outside, and sometimes we just didn't get to those assignments. And I just had to say, do not come through this door for the next 30 minutes so that I could finish writing this one paragraph, And they were fine out riding their bikes. They were okay. The two bigs. So, it's just, but no, I couldn't stop. I couldn't press pause, because if I pressed pause, I don't know when I would have picked it back up mentally. It's such a mental process too, that you go through. And yeah.
No, but I think that speaks so true for so many other things is, basically, everything that's happened has given people a lot of reasons to press pause and to say, oh, well, I couldn't because of this. I couldn't because of this. But another story that I read, and I think I read this towards the beginning, I don't remember where the guy lived. It may have been in Italy. It may have been somewhere else, but his goal was to run an upcoming marathon. And he had been preparing for that forever. And, so many people were just like, oh, well, guess we're not going to run it. And he went to his roof and ran the marathon on his roof. And he was like, that was my goal. My goal was to run this marathon on this day. And so he didn't let it stop him. But it's so amazing to hear that, and again, this kind of speaks true of our community and of our business leaders, our community leaders, that it was so great to not see people stop. To not, again, we're given all the reasons of, well, I'm not working, I'm working from home, or now I have to teach my kid, or, we were given so many reasons to just say, oh, well, I'll do it later. Mm-hmm. And so many people, especially here, and at least I feel like, didn't let that stop them. They, in fact, said, let me figure out how I can do it better.
Yeah, I think they didn't stop, they adapted. And I think that's the key thing there. And I think in the field of education, if anything, all of this has taught us educators are resilient and they can adapt. I mean, look how quickly we pivoted as a field and as a profession, and as a collective whole, tried to make the best of the situation and adapt and not stop trying to give, our students that learning experience. So absolutely.
And what I think too is great when it comes to educators, and not that this wasn't already happening, I'm sure it is, where, if you have a good idea, if, you're like, oh, I used this worksheet, I bet if we could redo it a little bit, which would make sense for your class. I feel like, and again, I think this is so true for other community members, let me share my insight with you. Let me share what I have to, and you could be teaching at two totally different schools, and yet it was still this camaraderie of, how can I help you? I've done this for mine. How can I help you as well? And I think the community just really showed that, especially here in Central Louisiana.
Absolutely. Yeah, the collaboration piece was definitely there. And I think as social beings and as humans, that's how we make it through, and we do adapt, and we are resilient. It's by relying on one another and collaborating. If you're out on your solo island, you're not going to get very far. I certainly wouldn't have gotten very far if I was trying to do all this alone without help and support and collaboration.
Yeah. All right. So this was the question that I kind of threw at you right before we started. So there are so many people out there, like we just discussed, who have had goals, who may have pressed pause, but what would you say to those people who maybe not even during this time, but maybe, have been thinking, okay, I have my bachelor's, I want to get a master's. I have my master's, I want to get a doctorate. I want to take up art. I want to take up writing. What would you say to those people on, if they now are getting some goals in mind? What would you say to those people? Or, hey, I want to start a business, or I want to switch careers. What would you say to them?
Go for it. I mean, nothing is the worst that somebody can do is tell you no, and then adapt and try to find a different avenue. And if it's just you yourself telling yourself no in your mind, again, like I said before, it's a mind game. So if you in your mind make up in your mind that you are going to achieve a goal, do it. And it doesn't mean that it's going to happen overnight, and you're going to hit roadblocks. My word, I hit a ton of roadblocks along the way trying to achieve this terminal degree. It didn't happen in the timeline. I didn't intend for it to take 4 years. In fact, I had to pay for a whole extra semester of dissertation hours, which my husband was not too happy about. But it's the timeline. Life happens, but it shouldn't deter you from your steadfast goal if that's truly what you want to achieve. And I dabble in a lot of different things. I dabble in art, but it doesn't mean that I paint full time. Art is my release. It's my me time. It's what I enjoy. I wish that I had a little bit more time to paint, but now that this is done behind me, it's just one other avenue of something that I can pick up and maybe devote a little bit more time to. So actually, I've had a couple people say, oh, you inspired me to get my master's or to finish. I was only this, little bit away from my doctorate. I should pick it back up again. I'm like, yes, you should. Absolutely. Pick it back up. And it's okay if it takes you 5 years. My goal, I'm 36, and my goal was when I registered for my doctoral program, I said I'm going to have this done by the time I'm 40. And I was ahead of my goal. So.
No, that was great. Krista, this has been awesome. I feel like this has been very inspiring, and I feel like anybody who listens to this can really just take a whole lot out of it, no matter what industry you're in, whether you're in education, whether you're a business owner, whether you're maybe a manager and maybe you're thinking you want to take the next step of, opening a business. I really that was very just inspiring. And, I love what you said, just go for it. If you have that goal, just go for it. So thank you so much, Krista. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.